Good morning, third graders. Our targets for today are: I will identify the greater amount, lesser amount, and difference in a compare story problem. And I will solve compare story problems with a missing difference using a tape diagram. We've been learning about takeaway problems for the last several days. You know that takeaway problems are part and whole problems. You know that in a takeaway problem, there is an amount, a takeaway action, and the amount decreases. In a takeaway problem, the starting amount is your whole and the takeaway amount, and the result amount, how much is left, are your parts. Today we're going to learn about another type of problem. This type of problem is different from all of the other problem types we've learned about so far, because in this problem type, there is not a whole and parts. In this problem type, there are two wholes and we're comparing them to find the difference. This problem type is called compare. Compare means to tell how two amounts are different. When you compare two amounts, there is a greater amount, the larger amount, and a lesser amount, the smaller amount. Look at these two trees. You can see that one of the trees is taller than the other tree. The taller tree would be the greater amount because it is more feet tall. The shorter tree would be the lesser amount because it is less feet tall. I can compare these to see that one tree is greater and one tree is shorter. The distance, third grade, between the greater amount and the lesser amount is called the difference. Oftentimes, when we compare two things, we're looking to find the difference, or the distance between the two amounts. You can see that there's a difference between the taller tree, the greater amount, and the shorter tree, the lesser amount. That distance, or difference between those two amounts, or the heights of the trees, is called the difference. While the height of the taller tree, the height of the greater amount, is a whole amount, and the height of the smaller tree, the lesser amount, is also a whole amount. The difference is not a real number. It's just the distance between the greater amount and lesser amount. So, in a compare problem, there are two amounts. There is no action that happens in a compare problem. Instead, the two whole amounts are compared to find the difference. You can see here that we have two amounts of teddy bears, 2 teddy bears, and 3 teddy bears. No action happens, but we compare the amounts of teddy bears, 3 teddy bears, and 2 teddy bears to find the difference between the two amounts. You can see that the difference is the distance or difference between 2 and 3. When we compare problems, we use a tape diagram. The compare problem type shows the difference between two wholes, the greater amount and the lesser amount. We use a tape diagram to represent compare story problems. The greater amount goes on the top of the tape diagram. The lesser amount goes on the bottom of the tape diagram because it is not as large as the greater amount. The difference also goes on the bottom of a tape diagram. Because the difference is not a real number, but rather a distance or difference between the two amounts, we represent the difference with a dotted line because it's not a real amount. The greater amount is a real whole amount. The lesser amount is a real whole amount as well, but this difference isn't a real amount. It's just the distance between the greater amount and the lesser amount. In a compare problem, the two amounts are compared to find the difference. The greater amount goes on the top of the bar diagram, and this lesser amount goes on the bottom. You can see that I'm representing this compare problem with the teddy bears using my tape diagram. I know that there are 3 teddy bears as one amount and 2 teddy bears as another amount. 3 teddy bears is more than 2 teddy bears, so 3 teddy bears is clearly the greater amount. I'll put 3 teddy bears on the top of my tape diagram because it's the greater or larger amount. 2 teddy bears is less than 3 teddy bears, so 2 teddy bears is my lesser amount. I will put 2 teddy bears in the bottom of my tape diagram because 2 teddy bears is my lesser amount. Now, I do not know this difference between the two teddy bears. I do not know, because it does not show me, the difference between the 3 teddy bears and the 2 teddy bears, so I will put n for the difference. Remember, because n is not a real number, it's just the difference between the two amounts. It's not a real amount, I represent it with a dotted line. We solve compare problems by adding or subtracting. When the unknown information is the difference, we subtract. The greater amount minus the lesser amount equals the difference. So, in this teddy bear problem, we would say the greater amount, 3 teddy bears, minus the lesser amount, 2 teddy bears, equals n, the difference in teddy bears. Since 3 minus 2 equals 1, n equals 1. The difference equals 1. Now let's look at that tree problem we saw earlier. We know that one of the amounts is the 20-foot tall tree and the other amount is the 15-foot tall tree. And we know that the difference is the distance between those two trees. I want you to think in your mind, which number, 20 feet tall or 15 feet tall or n, is going to be the greater amount? You're right, 20 feet tall is the greater amount because it is the taller of the two trees. What is the lesser amount? Yes, the lesser amount is 15 feet tall because 15 feet tall is the height of the shorter tree, or the lesser amount. What would we put for n, the difference between the taller tree and the shorter tree? Yes, we would say the difference is n because we do not know currently the distance between the 20-foot tall tree and the 15-foot tall tree. Here's that same tape diagram we were just looking at, with the 20-foot tall tree as our greater amount, the 15-foot tall tree as our shorter amount, and n, the difference between the two heights, as our difference. What equation will help us solve this problem and find the difference? Should we add or subtract? Yes, we will subtract to solve this problem. So think, what equation would we write? We would write the equation 20 feet tall, the greater amount, minus 15 feet tall, the lesser amount, equals n, the difference in height. What does n equal? 20 minus 15 equals 5, so the difference, n, equals 5. Excellent work, 3rd grade. Now you're ready to solve a compare problem with me. We're going to solve this problem. Riley and Alice each bought their own bag of candy corn. When they counted them, they discovered that Alice had 48 pieces and Riley had 37. How many more pieces of candy corn did Alice have than Riley? We're going to use our problem-solving process to solve these compare problems, just like we used our problem-solving process to solve get more, put together, and take away problems. We'll start with step 1, reading and understanding the problem. We're going to look to see what do we know and what are we trying to find out. I'm going to read the problem again. You're going to find the 2 pieces of information they give us, as well as the question. Riley and Alice each bought their own bag of candy corn. When they counted them, they discovered that Alice had 48 pieces and Riley had 37. How many pieces of candy corn? How many more pieces of candy corn did Alice have than Riley? Yes, one of the pieces of information in this problem is that Alice had 48 pieces of candy. The other piece of information in the story problem is that Riley had 37 pieces of candy. The question, of course, has a question mark at the end, so it's very easy to see. How many more pieces of candy did Alice have than Riley? Now, we're going to look for some key words that help us know which piece of information is the greater amount, which piece of information is the lesser amount, and which piece of information is the difference. Now, 3rd grade, you'll need to know there are some difference words we're going to hear. When we hear words that show comparisons, like more than, less than, taller than, shorter than, larger than, smaller than, those are compare words, and they usually appear in the difference. So when we see those compare words, we'll know that's the difference. I'm noticing in this problem that we're talking about Alice having 48 pieces of candy and Riley having 37. I'm noticing that those sound like 2 whole amounts. So one of my pieces of information is going to be that Alice has 48 pieces of candy. I know that that's my greater amount because that is clearly more than the number of pieces Riley has. Riley only has 37 pieces. 37 is a smaller amount than 48. Since they both have pieces of candy, the one who has the greater amount of candy, Alice, is the greater amount. Riley is the lesser amount because Riley has less candy. Riley only has 37 pieces of candy. Now, when I look at that question, how many more pieces of candy did Alice have than Riley? I see the compare words. How many more pieces of candy did Alice have than Riley? That tells me the question is asking about the difference because it includes the compare words or the difference words, more than. I know that the information I'm trying to find in this problem is the difference. I know the greater amount, Alice's candy, and the lesser amount, Riley's candy. Let's go ahead and start thinking about step 2 of our problem-solving process. Planning. We're going to determine the problem type. Today we know it's compare, and we're going to organize the information using a tape diagram. Let's go ahead and think about our tape diagram. Well, we know that the two amounts are Alice's candy and Riley's candy. What is going to be who is the greater amount? Alice's candy or Riley's candy? Yes, Alice's pieces of candy is the greater amount. So who has to be the lesser amount then? Yes, Riley's pieces of candy is the lesser amount. The words that I'm going to include in the difference are those compare words. More candy. I could also put more than because that's the difference. Alice has more candy than Riley. More than or more candy is the difference. Let's go ahead and think about what numbers we should include in our tape diagram. How many pieces of candy does Alice have? What is the number that goes in the greater amount? Yes, Alice has 48 pieces of candy, so 48 pieces of candy is the greater amount. What number belongs in the lesser amount? How many pieces of candy does Riley have? Yes, Riley has 37 pieces of candy, so I'll put 37 pieces of candy as the lesser amount. Finally, think about the difference. What number should we put for the difference? You're right, because the question is asking us to find the difference. We don't know it yet. That means that I'll put N for the difference, N for more candy. Now, third grade, it's time for us to move on to the third step in our problem-solving process. We need to choose an operation, addition or subtraction, and then we need to solve. Go ahead and look at that tape diagram that we filled out. The missing information is the difference. I want you to think back. When the difference is missing, what do? Do we add or subtract? Yes, when the difference is missing, we subtract. So we're going to subtract to solve this question. Remember, we're going to subtract the greater amount minus the lesser amount to find the difference. So my equation would look like 48 Alice's total pieces of candy minus 37 Riley's pieces of candy is going to tell me N, the difference in the pieces of candy. I'll subtract my greater amount 48 minus my lesser amount 37 to find the difference between the two. You know that we need to write these vertically so that we can solve them, carefully lining up the ones place and tens place. Go ahead and look at the ones place in the equation 48 minus 37. I need to subtract 8 minus 7. I can subtract 8 minus 7 because 8 the whole is greater than 7 the part. What is 8 minus 7? 8 minus 7 is 1. Here you can see I've set up my equation vertically, 48 minus 37. On a piece of paper, third grade, go ahead and solve 48 minus 37. What does N equal in this problem? 48 minus 37 equals 11. So third grade, that means that N equals 11. The difference between the amount of candy Alice has and the amount of candy Riley has is 11 pieces of candy. Finally, third grade, we're ready to answer the question in words. Go ahead and look at the question that we've underlined. How many more pieces of candy corn did Alice have than Riley? Go ahead and think about that, third grade. How would we write that answer in words? Yes, we would say Alice has 11 more pieces of candy corn than Riley. In a compare answer, we make sure to include the full comparison. It's asking us for the difference, so we say Alice has 11 more pieces of candy corn than Riley. It's time for the final step in our problem-solving process. We need to look back and check. We'll look at our work and we'll ask ourselves, is our answer reasonable? Well, first of all, third grade, look at our bar diagram. The numbers we included were 48 and 37. Those are the numbers that were in the story problem, so we wrote them down correctly. We decided to subtract because we were missing the difference. That was the correct choice, because greater amount minus lesser amount equals difference. When we subtracted 48 minus 37, it equaled 11. This makes sense because 48 is our whole and 11 is smaller than our whole 48. Finally, look at your answer. Did your answer restate the question? Does it include the correct answer? Yes, our answer restated the question and includes the correct answer, 11. So that means, third grade, that our answer is correct. Thank you for solving this compare problem with me today. We're going to learn more about solving compare problems tomorrow.